In the early 1960s, Malcolm X became one of the most powerful and controversial voices of the black community in the United States. A devout follower of Elijah Muhammad, leader of the Nation of Islam, he preached black nationalism and separatism as the way for blacks to gain independence and self-respect.
Malcolm's goal was to validate African American identity and culture and to give African Americans a sense of pride and self-respect and dignity.
Even the X in his name was meant to symbolize the stolen identity of slaves brought from Africa. As a minister of the Nation of Islam, he was militant in his demand that blacks take charge of their own destiny.
Get off the welfare. Get out of that compensation line. Be a man. Earn what you need for your own family. Then your family respects you. You are accepting the responsibilities of manhood.
He even chided those blacks who chose to blend into white society on all levels.
Throughout America, you have a house Negro and a field Negro. That Negro big shot, the upper class Negro, the middle class Negro. In every city, that black bourgeoisie. They aren't oppressed like you and I are. Before the Emancipation Proclamation, they lived in the white man's house.
All you demonstrators under arrest.
Unlike Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X held out little hope that blacks could ever achieve equality through legislation, like the 1964 Civil Rights and Voting Rights Bill. And he rejected King's faith in nonviolence, instead urging blacks to be militant and to aggressively seize the rights he said they were entitled to as American citizens.
Bring about the complete independence of people of African descent and bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
But in 1962, Malcolm X's faith in the Nation of Islam was shaken when he learned that his mentor and spiritual leader, Elijah Muhammad, had committed adultery and had fathered children with 3 of his secretaries. Malcolm X eventually broke away from the Nation of Islam, and tensions between the two men increased. At the same time, he began to look for common ground with the mainstream civil rights movement.
As Malcolm matured and evolved, as he left the Nation of Islam, he came to realize that civil rights laws did matter. He deliberately reached out to Dr. King to seek to build a broad coalition of all Negroes fighting for freedom.
Malcolm X began getting death threats, reportedly from the Nation of Islam. On February 21st, 1965, while he was making a speech at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan, several men rushed the stage and shot him to death. 3 members of the Nation of Islam were convicted of the murder of 39-year-old Malcolm X.
The assassination of Malcolm X was unique in history in that instead of retarding the black freedom struggle, it led to a kind of renaissance. Many young activists who were inspired by Malcolm took shreds of different parts of Malcolm's philosophy and applied them in radically different ways. Whether Malcolm would have agreed or disagreed about individual strategies is beyond knowing because Malcolm had been assassinated. And yet he became the fountainhead for what became known as Black Power.